Doug the Thug was an all-American boy who transformed into an outlaw legend so terrifying that prison authorities allegedly welded his cell shut. They called him Doug the Thug, for reasons that would make even hardened criminals step aside when he walked through San Quentin's yard. From breaking handcuffs with his bare hands to surviving attacks that would have killed ordinary men, Doug's reputation reached mythic proportions. He was in for everything, an assassin for the Hells Angels and a straight-up berserker. In a fit of strength, he broke a pair of handcuffs like this. Before becoming Sonny Barger's enforcer, he was a high school swimming champion who gave graduation speeches about the importance of reading. Sonny Barger was the president of the Hells Angels when it first started, the Oakland chapter, and he wrote about Doug, calling him the most violent man he ever knew. Doug's journey from golden boy to nightmare incarnate was so extreme that when he died, some refused to believe it. Doug was a dream to many and a nightmare to many others. Buckle up, because this story doesn't come with safety features. Douglas Orr Jr. was born in April 1946 in Fresno, California, to working-class parents and raised in tiny Selma, California. He was the couple's firstborn, growing up in a traditional family setting straight out of Leave It to Beaver. The local newspaper tracked his wholesome childhood like a sitcom highlight reel. Birthday parties with grandparents made front-page news. He was a typical all-American boy whose school swimming competitions earned him local fame. His 8th grade graduation speech about education through reading revealed his articulate side. Yet, this bookish boy would later make hardened criminals tremble in prison yards. In November 1959, disaster struck when 12-year-old Orr crashed his homemade four-wheeler at an intersection, fracturing both his legs. While doctors saved his limbs, something inside him may have changed forever. Months in hospital beds might have twisted something fundamental. At age 15, he vanished without explanation, running away at midnight and staying gone for days. Though he returned, questions lingered. By 1962, he appeared rehabilitated and focused on athletic achievement, winning trophies, earning praise from teachers, and admiration from classmates. Yet beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. That same year, 16-year-old Orr received his athletic letter for swimming at the school's awards banquet. The transformation between graduation and 1967 defied simple explanation. In 1960, he graduated from the 8th grade as part of a small class of 20 students and delivered a speech on the importance of education through reading. But within a few years, that honor student had vanished. He re-emerged in Irving Penn's photographs wearing Hells Angels patches with cold eyes. Between 1964 and 1967, Orr transformed from a clean-cut American boy to an outlaw biker, Doug the Thug, joining the Daly City chapter of the Hells Angels. Former inmates later spoke of his reputation with fearful reverence. He wasn't just an angel, he was what other angels feared. The small-town boy who once cherished books now preferred reading terror in men's eyes instead. Doug's descent into infamy accelerated with the precision of a well-tuned Harley. By July 1967, his first major arrest came during a routine traffic stop when police found marijuana in his pockets. That minor offense barely hinted at what was to come. In the following months, his troubles escalated. During a weekend in San Mateo County Jail, guards found stimulants during a strip search and noted his fresh Hells Angels tattoo across his chest. December 1967 marked his first violent public offense, attacking anti-war protesters at San Jose State with a baseball bat while his companion wielded a metal pipe. For many angels, protesters were seen as unpatriotic enemies, but beating civilians was far from patriotic service. The next year, Doug's violence reached chilling new levels. At Redwood City's topless pool hall, chaos erupted in the parking lot. Doug struck a deputy from behind, only to be bitten by the officer's police dog, suffering a broken hand. Still, he remained undeterred. In January 1969, he committed his most notorious act of violence. After a trivial traffic dispute, Doug and fellow angels followed 21-year-old Earl Hudson home. They broke down his door as Hudson's wife hid in a closet. As Hudson tried to escape over a backyard fence, Doug allegedly shot him point-blank with a shotgun. Surgeons later removed 47 pellets from Hudson's body, along with his gallbladder and parts of his liver and stomach. Somehow Hudson survived and identified Doug as his attacker. Law enforcement quickly raided Angel hangouts and arrested Doug, who seemed unconcerned. Perhaps he believed his reputation made him untouchable, or maybe he simply lacked imagination to consider prison. Doug's trial became the talk of San Mateo County. Despite multiple witnesses and damning evidence, he played the insanity card. Psychiatrists described him as paranoid, violent, and delusional. He claimed that the government implanted devices in his brain and that voices told him to kill. Whether a legal strategy or genuine psychosis, it worked. In 1969, a judge declared Doug mentally unfit for trial and sent him to Atascadero State Hospital for the criminally insane instead of San Quentin. Atascadero was known for housing California's most disturbed offenders, but Doug treated it like a training camp. Reports describe multiple violent outbursts, including an incident where he allegedly beat another patient unconscious with a food tray, and another where he attacked a nurse. His legend only grew. Guards began calling him the Thug after he threatened to rip off the head of anyone who looked at him wrong. In early 1971, Doug escaped. The details remain mysterious. Some say he pried open a window, others claim he overpowered an orderly. But the result was the same. Doug the Thug disappeared into thin air. For weeks, law enforcement launched a statewide manhunt. Newspaper headlines screamed, "Insane killer escapes hospital." Rumors spread that he'd gone north to Oakland to rejoin the Hells Angels, while others whispered he'd fled to Mexico. Months later, police caught him during a raid at a biker house in Daly City, half naked, covered in tattoos, and grinning like he'd just pulled off the world's greatest prank. Authorities transferred him to San Quentin this time, removing any pretense of hospital care. The transition from padded cell to prison cell barely fazed him. Inside San Quentin, Doug's reputation exploded. He was the real-life boogeyman among killers. Inmates said he could bench press more than 400 pounds, rip handcuffs apart, and once broke through a metal door hinge during a rage. Guards reportedly welded his cell door shut to stop him from bursting out during fights. He fought constantly. As the 1980s rolled in, Doug faded into myth. Some said he disappeared into the Nevada desert, working odd jobs and living out of an old trailer. Others swore they saw him at biker bars along Route 66, drinking alone and staring through people as if he were already dead. Police reports placed him in and out of custody for minor infractions, bar fights, weapon charges, assault threats, but nothing stuck. By then, his name carried too much weight for even law enforcement to approach lightly. They knew what he was capable of. He'd become the outlaw among outlaws, the one bikers invoked to scare prospects into obedience. "You ever heard of Doug the Thug?" became a warning, not a question. In biker folklore, Doug became a symbol of pure chaos, strength without mercy, loyalty without restraint, and violence without end. His story turned into legend at every Hells Angels gathering. Old members whispered about the time he took on 5 men alone and left them crawling, or when he allegedly ripped a payphone off the wall because the operator hung up on him. There were stories that he could break steel handcuffs just by twisting his wrists, a claim that surfaced in multiple inmate reports and was repeated by guards who swore they'd seen it themselves. Whether true or not, these tales built Doug's mythology until it was impossible to separate man from monster. By the mid-1980s, Doug was said to be mentally deteriorating. Friends described him as paranoid, talking about government surveillance and hidden enemies. He'd go off-grid for months, then reappear at biker events looking gaunt but intense, still carrying himself with that aura of danger. In 1987, a rumor spread that he'd been found dead in a burned-out car near Barstow, but no official record ever confirmed it. Others insisted he faked his death to escape the constant pressure. From the law, from enemies, or maybe from his own mind. In 1990, a former Hells Angel told an interviewer that Doug was too mean to die. The devil probably quit first. Even decades later, ex-cons and outlaw bikers still spoke of him with a strange mix of fear and respect. To them, Doug wasn't just a man. He was the embodiment of outlaw energy, the physical proof that rage and strength could outlast morality. His story became a cautionary tale for some, inspiration for others. Within biker culture, where toughness and loyalty define worth, Doug was the ultimate extreme, a man who crossed every line and never came back. Sonny Barger's later books and interviews ensured Doug's legacy wouldn't be forgotten. Barger described Doug's uncontrollable violence as both his gift and his curse. "He didn't start fights to prove something," Barger wrote. "He started them because that's who he was." That line alone sealed Doug's place in outlaw history. Whether you loved or hated him, you couldn't ignore him. Even behind prison walls, his name carried weight. Guards told new inmates, "Don't look Doug in the eyes." He became a ghost story in flesh, a man who lived every day as if laws and limits were myths made for weaker men. Even after Doug vanished, his influence rippled through the outlaw world. Every new generation of bikers inherited fragments of his legend. Some claimed to ride under his code. No fear, no mercy, no forgiveness. Others used his story as a warning, proof that the outlaw life consumes its own. But whether told around campfires, in prison yards, or smoky bars, the ending was always the same. Doug the Thug disappeared the same way he lived, without apology, without surrender, and without a trace. As time passed, his myth only grew larger. In the outlaw motorcycle culture, where names are earned through blood and chaos, Doug's name became immortal. Even rival gangs like the Outlaws and Mongols whispered about him with caution. It wasn't just his strength that terrified people. It was his unpredictability, his total disregard for consequence. He embodied the one truth every biker understood deep down. Once you live outside the law long enough, the line between freedom and destruction disappears completely. Some believe Doug was buried in an unmarked grave somewhere near the desert highways he once ruled, while others claimed he was seen decades later, old and frail, but still riding alone under the desert moon. No one knows for sure, but one thing remains certain. Doug the Thug, the most feared member of the Hells Angels, left behind a legacy that defines the dark heart of biker brotherhood. His story became not just a part of biker history, but a reflection of everything the outlaw life promises and destroys. He was loyalty without love, rage without reason, and strength without peace. And in the end, even the angels couldn't tame him.